Efram Bryant, an R&B singer whose public persona is LoveLogiq, is a songwriter, poet, MC, and social activist. Family, it is exciting for me to bring him in conversation right now. Hey!
Hey, Mama Jan, what's going on?
Oh, I'm so excited to talk with you today. I'm sitting out here in North Carolina in a digital desert. So we've done all kinds of magic to make sure we hold up for this conversation. And wow, I'm excited to have it with you.
Let's go. I'm excited.
Yeah. So listen, E, before we even start, let me apologize if I go in and out of names for you. Having known you since your childhood, look, guy, knowing you since your childhood, it's a blessing and a joy to talk with you now as a successful young artist, activist, and entrepreneur. For purposes of introducing you to our family, it's thrilling, though, to say, welcome, LoveLogiq.
Hey, thank you. Pleasure to be here with you. I might accidentally call you Mama Jan because that's all I know. So forgive me to the audience and the family.
That's all I'll ever be for you, boo. Okay. LoveLogiq, I just got to tell you, I love waves and sunsets. Now, your voice and your artistic expression through music and poetry is beautiful. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Having listened to you hone your gift through the years, I've witnessed that you've always had a pure sound and a profound message. Take us back and share with us what your musical journey has been like.
Well, I come from a very musical background, as you may or may not know. My father was a musician. My mother, out in the industry working for Vital magazine, and she was the first Black editor of that magazine, and then transitioned over to work with artists like Whitney Houston and Gil Scot Heron at Arista. So my whole background has been music before I could talk. Growing up listening to the Isleys, Al Green, Marvin Gaye. So it's very rich. And as far back as I can remember, music has been a part of my life, and so I couldn't escape it if I tried. So this has just been a great opportunity for me to kind of step into my own and step into it with intention. And so it's been an amazing journey, a challenging journey, but a blessing. I've really enjoyed the ride.
Yeah. And you talk about enjoying the ride. I love that you're able to stand above circumstance and really see the beauty and the teaching and the lesson in it, particularly in these days we're living in now. But that's something I've seen you do throughout growing up. And hold on, I'm going to show you something real quick. I hadn't thought about doing this actually, but I want to show you something. I told you I'm here in North Carolina. Remember this? Remember vinyl?
Oh yeah, look at that! Yay! Look at young Marvin.
Marvin. Back when Kate was playing vinyl in her room while you and Brett were playing,
Yes, she had the vinyl. We had the CDs in the other room bumping.
Right. She stayed with the vinyl, And I guess the reason I wanted to show that to you, well, there are two primary reasons. One, E, is that when I think about you, you always took me back to what I felt when I first heard music on vinyl. And I just share with you how much I'm vibing on your music now. We're going to talk about some in specific. The other reason I pulled it down, though, is because, remember we would jive to what's going on and talk about how relevant it was during that time. Could you have imagined how relevant it is now, today, as in the US, we approach an election season, but across the world, we're all looking at climate change and those issues and those things that we address regarding election material. Your sound allows us to speak about who we are, and you don't place prejudice in your music. As a social activist, what are some of the key messages you're seeking to convey through your music and poetry, though? Am I reading you well?
I would say so. I think for me, it's ultimately belief in self. You have to have an almost irrational belief in yourself when you're confronted with whatever adversity or challenges are in front of you, seen or unseen. And I think that that mixed with a true integrity and love for what you're creating is really kind of my whole message. You know, it's about authenticity. I pull inspiration from all spaces, particularly the Marvins, particularly the Owls, and you know, the classics from that era, because that's what was fed to me, Isleys, all of that stuff. And they all had their own way of kind of bringing their authenticity, their truth to the forefront. And so that's why I think that that kind of stuff is timeless. So my intention is always to chase that timelessness, whatever that may be. I want to make sure that the audience is feeling something authentic for me. It may not always be a happy feeling. It may be whatever is my truth at that moment. And I think that that's the goal of a real artist, is to speak truthfully about where they are, what they're seeing in the world, and what they think the world can do to just advance itself. And I operate in all those spaces. You know, my personal affirmation has always been, if I can remember it, because I would say it to myself daily when I'm in the mirror and I do my morning meditations, and it's forgive me, I'm one of the dopest artists in the scene, spoken in the same conversation as Kendrick, Cole, Marvin Gaye, D'Angelo, The Roots. They know me and I know them. The respect is mutual. I've maintained my authenticity and humility while providing quality art for people to enjoy, reflect upon, and be inspired by. I have arrived and I'm still going. Hard dedication got me here. Discipline will maintain me. My family is healthy, wealthy, wise, grateful, and at peace. There's nothing that I lack. So it is. So that's my daily affirmation. When I forget to do that affirmation in the morning, it sets things off a little bit. But when I remember it, it helps to kind of zero in on what my purpose is, whatever I'm doing, when I'm in the community activist space, when I'm in the creative space, when I'm serving. That is kind of my North Star, if you will. And so that's what I want to make sure I'm putting in whatever I'm creating.
I love it. I love it so much. And I love that you go into your space before you recite it. I can see you doing that. I can feel you doing that. And I celebrate it for you. You know, let's get a little bit specific about some of your work, though, because you have this nonprofit Core Contributors Group Inc., and you're doing some work in the community that you care deeply about through this organization. Why don't you tell us about it a little bit?
Yes, so Core Contributors Group came about during the height of the pandemic. We started it, I want to say around June of 2020, a collection of friends of mine. By day, I'm a social worker and therapist. I've been an individual and family psychotherapist for the past 15 years. And so over that course of that time, I have acquired a really wonderful group of therapists and teachers and educators. And we all decided to kind of come together, pool our resources, and see how we could be of benefit during this time. And we've been blessed to be able to be a blessing to our larger community in LA by providing, you know, funding to individuals of color in the areas of health and wellness, education, and reducing homelessness. And so over the course of the last 3 years, we've been able to sponsor or donate close to $300,000. And so it's been a real blessing. So that's kind of the mission for Core Contributors Group. We're coming up on our third annual community event on August the 12th. It's a free event providing back to school supplies for the community, free haircuts for the kids, entertainment, and we are bringing in Black and brown vendors to kind of give them a larger platform. It's on August 12th, and it's going to be at one of the local churches here in Inglewood. And it's our third annual. It's called Ujima. Each year we have a theme. This year's theme is going to be Forward Together. As you know, the old proverb says, the African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. So this year's theme is Forward Together. We have to unite if we're going to progress as people, as a country, and as just as human beings. So that's the theme as we move forward for this year for Core Contributors Group, and we're excited about it.
Core Contributors Group has done so much good work. I know that Brett was enthusiastic about it last year. And I think you mentioned August 12th is actually going to be an event day for Core Contributors. So I believe I'll be in California during that time and would love to find out from you how I can be personally active, or perhaps Brett, Kate, Louisa, and I can all be personally active and just get out there and make it not just an event, but a movement.
Yes, we love this. Love to have you all come out. Yeah, last year when Brett came, it was such a surprise, such a blessing to have him come and show his support. So that would be lovely to have you all come out. I'll be happy to send you whatever information you need. And if you can make it, I would love to have you come out there.
Get that information to Christy, and we'll just bring our crew over. Okay.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, that'll be wonderful. Hey, listen, LoveLogiq is enjoying some great momentum with your independent album release. Talk about this, dude.
So the independent release, Waves and Sunsets, we dropped February 10th of this year. It is my third independent album. And as of right now, we just crossed over 250,000 streams independently. Over the course of about 6 months, and I feel like it's been my best work thus far, and it feels very just complete. And I tried to be honest, this album came on the back of some personal, I don't want to say inner turmoil, but just questioning what my next move would be. Would I want to continue to pursue shut down? Everyone was kind of in their silos, and I just started asking myself, do I really want to keep doing this? Like, why am I doing this, right? And the only answer that I kept coming up with was, I love it, and you should always do what you love. That's enough. And I just gradually just started chipping away at my little home studio. And one song turned into 5, passed it around to a couple of friends of mine, 5 turned into 12, and then came across some, business partners that were like, hey, we like what you're doing. We want to work with you. We love your sound. And before I knew it, I had Waves and Sunsets, and, over the course of, a couple months. And so far it seems to be, folks seem to be really liking it.
It blew my mind when last year you were charting at the top on those digital listenings in Europe. I was like, whoa, do you see this? Do you see this?
That was crazy. But it was confirmation.
Crazy, but it was also understandable because your music is just so intentionally gorgeous. And I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled for what you're doing through music, not just what you're doing as a person. LoveLogiq, your mom isn't LoveLogiq. Your mom is an incredible woman who I admire. Your whole family are so important to you. How have they impacted your choices in music?
Well, my mom is definitely, she started out and worked with a lot of the legends, so that experience that spilled over into me. I can remember being in her car, listening to all the greats, the Emotions, Al Green, Stevie Wonder, and I just wanted to always impress her. She always said it's a really good example. She's my friend, she's my friend, and she inspires me just with her spirit, and anything that she was into, I wanted to be into, so music just made sense as a way to bring a smile to her face, and it came natural. So that was my initial kind of introduction. I can remember being a little kid, and my brother and my sister getting tired and telling her, "Mommy, make him stop. The first song I would repeat in the car was this old church hymn, "Amen in the morning, amen in the evening, Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen. Sing it over. Yeah.
So
That's what
in
we
the
used to roll
mornings,
to.
on the way to school, my brother and sister would be like, "Mommy, make him stop." She would say, "Let him sing if he wants to." So she was always my
Miss
first
Lowe enjoyed
cheerleader.
your flow.
Yes, exactly.
But
So that's where it comes from. And the
yeah,
writing from
and
her
you're
for
passing
sure.
it forward. You're so passing it forward in your music. I mean, when I listen to you, I think that you're not just having a desire to impact your listeners. You want to create meaningful dialogues with them, and that's one of the reasons I think you like went crazy wild in Europe, and I think it's happening here now with the independent release. As I've shared, I've known you since you were a kid, and calling you E comes natural to me. Yet I do enjoy the ease of speaking with you in your stage name, LoveLogiq. It's a very powerful name. Explain the significance behind it and how it speaks to your journey.
So LoveLogiq came after a series of names, as I'm sure many artists have gone through their different transitions. But I wanted, like I said, I wanted something, I'm thinking timeless, right? I'm thinking something that's going to sustain and be meaningful when I'm, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100. Love is the initial ingredient in anything that you do. I believe if you're not doing it with a spirit of love, you shouldn't do it. So I wanted that to be a part of my name, my moniker. People tend to see me as there's kind of two sides to me. I'm very passionate and emotionally aware and connected to people, but I'm also very tactical and logical in terms of this is how I approach things. Like I said, I've been in a therapist for a very long time. I've always wanted to understand how people think and why they think the way they do. I was that person in school that people came and laid their problems to, whether I want, whether I asked for it or not. So those two parts of me kind of made sense. And then when you think about love, you can't touch it, you can't feel it. It's not anything you can actually tangibly see. But music is the most tangible conduit through which love can be expressed and conveyed. It's the most logical way that love can be felt. So that's why I put those two together. You can't have one without the other. So that's where the name comes from.
Right. And I love it. And you deliver on that. You really live truthfully to that. And in our communities, we care about names. They mean a lot. We think about them deeply. Your work often addresses issues of injustice, inequality, and empowerment.
Sure. Right.
You single out possibilities and responsibilities versus anger and destruction. How do you navigate the balance between highlighting these challenges while offering hope and solutions through your art?
Well, I do my best to approach any sort of creative space from a space of gratitude. Whenever I'm kind of encountering a barrier or something that I need to reconcile with, I start with these three things. My old saying is get quiet, get patient, get grateful. If you can't approach anything with any clarity if there's too much noise going on, whether there's actual physical noise going on around you or whether there's noise inside of yourself. So that means getting a quiet space, you meditate, whatever it is you need to do, prayer, whatever it is, that quiet space. You have to bring in a space of patience in addition to that. Nothing that lasts, nothing that's valuable, nothing that's going to lead you to a solution is going to come if it's rushed. So you have to find a quiet space. You have to find a place of patience. And lastly, gratitude. There has to be humility in what you're doing. You have to have a reverence and a respect for whatever you're approaching, whatever the situation is. If it's a social justice issue, you have to approach it from a standpoint of gratitude, because if you don't, you're going to skew, your approach is going to be skewed. Your energy is going to be tainted, and you're not going to get the best product out of whatever you're doing, trying to make sure remember to get in my space of quiet. I have to remember to gather my patience and remember to be grateful for the opportunity to be of service to people. And that usually just kind of is my magic switch that allows me to get in my zone and be my best self and present, the best way that I can in the world. And like I said, as a creative.
I love that so much. And you don't just create alone. I mean, you've had some quite memorable musical collaborations. How they enriched your creative process. Talk about those a little bit.
So over the course of, the last 10 years, I've had an opportunity to work with a lot of powerful up and coming artists. On Waves and Sunsets, I had the opportunity to work with this lovely young lady. Her name is Makaya. We've known each other for 10 years. She's touring all over the world as an amazing singer. I've had an opportunity to get production from a good friend of mine. He goes by 6-7 Music. He's actually North Carolina too. He's in North Carolina too.
A lot of good stuff out of North Carolina, dude.
A lot of good stuff in North Carolina. He's in Raleigh, and he works with Mariah Carey. He's worked with Bruno Mars. He's getting ready to do some work with Kirk Franklin. So all of these, the pool, as Donny Hathaway said, the black pool of genius is deep, and so I've been fortunate enough to kind of gravitate to the same kind of people, just hitting different clubs and different spots in LA and the surrounding LA area where people have a mutual respect. You might be my kind of person. What you into? And then from there the conversation builds. And before that, I'm like, hey, I have no ego in this situation. Let's go create something. Let's see what comes of it. And before I know it, we have a whole album. So that's kind of how it comes across. I also want to shout out my boy Dot. He works with 1500 or Nothing. He's a affiliate of the group 1500 or Nothing. They were the band for Jay-Z. They've been the band for Lupe Fiasco. I think they did some work for Beyonce. So these are all guys that are just talented young musicians that are all out there pursuing with the same kind of passion that I am. And they were, kind enough to, connect with me, and they liked what I was doing. And, that's all I can really say. I'm just grateful that they were, willing to kind of rock with me and help me put this project together.
Yeah. And they got all that old soul, genius, and then they're innovative and bringing, new energy to it. I just really love it. And as you're mentioning the artists they've worked with, they create a lot of the energy behind that pushes them over 100%. So much. I mean, 100%. That's incredible. If there were any artist at any time in history through today who you could collaborate with and you've not yet done that, who would it be? I mean, shorten the list a little bit, but who would it be?
That's a hard question. Man, who would I work with? I would work with Earth, Wind, and Fire. I would work with, I actually did a remake of Reasons, which you can find on the internet as well. I did a remake of Reasons, and that caught some waves a few years back. So Earth, Wind, and Fire, The Roots, they're one of my favorite current bands. They do everything. They're basically primarily hip hop, but they've worked with everybody. I'd love to work with Donny Hathaway. I think that's probably where my soul comes from. And
didn't Donny Hathaway work with Aretha on Bridge Over Troubled Water? Didn't he collaborate with her on that? I won't ask you to speak definitively to it, but I know he had worked with her.
I can't speak with full confidence, but I would not be surprised. He did a lot of work behind the scenes that he wasn't necessarily trying to get credit for it. But again, he was just a pure creative that kind of left his fingerprints on a lot of those folks. So I would not be surprised if he did do that with
Most people know him with Roberta Flack, but he
Roberta.
was really, yeah.
Yes.
And Layla ain't that bad either, right?
Layla is the truth. So I'm working on trying to get something popping with her too. But she's amazing. She's amazing. I would love to write a song for her. That's really what long term I want to be able to do, is just establish myself as a songwriter. You know, so that's where
Get busy. Let's make that connection. I'm gonna help you make that. I'm gonna help you make that happen. Get busy, okay? That's my commitment, boo. Okay.
All right.
But you know, you said in an interview somewhere that Love Jones is your favorite movie, and so many young Black and brown people I know agree with you. Over the summer
1,000%.
vacations at my house, I know I've sat through movies with nieces and nephews that were Love Jones and Love and Basketball. What makes Love Jones your favorite movie? Oh yeah, right?
Yeah, it just, honestly, that is the utopia type vision for how I see Black love. The way I see it just encapsulates the best and truest of what I think young Black creatives look like. You know, the artist Nina, she was a photographer. She was out here kind of chasing her dream, but she was intelligent, she was cool, she was sexy, she wasn't too much. And I felt the same way from the character Darius. You know, people used to say, "Oh, you remind me of Darius Lovehall from Love Jones." Like, he was cool, you know, he was talented, he was self-confident, but he wasn't, overly flashy. And just how they came together, it was just, and it was beautifully intelligent and so culturally rich, where they placed it in Chicago, such a rich creative history. It was just a perfect movie, and I can watch it at any time of day. I know it frontwards and
it
frontwards
came
and
on the
backwards.
heels. Yeah, and it came on the heels of so much black exploitation, and you weren't seeing these beautiful love stories from Black people.
And you haven't seen one like that in a long time since then.
Yeah, Aunt Trish, I have to give credit for something she said that I've repeated often when I talk with women of all ethnicities and social status, and that is, love does not have to hurt. So many of us have been taught by music, because our music is supposedly singing our truths. So many of us have been taught, that we survive through hurt and pain for love, but love doesn't have to hurt in that way, does it? No. It can be it's a journey, but it doesn't have to be one that's filled with landmines, Right. And I think we go in thinking that's the way it has to happen.
For sure. Yes. Love in its highest presentation is not about suffering. I believe with love, there are challenges, but challenges are not negative. Just like you go to the gym, in order to get stronger muscles, you're going to have to lift heavier weights. You may come out of there being a little sore, but you'll be stronger afterwards. I don't see that as a negative or just hurt for hurt's sake, right? But with love at its best, it's going to be an opportunity for you to grow, to reveal your most passionate and your most genuine parts of yourself without having to feel like you're guarded, when you really recognize yourself in that other person. So I think that that's where love can, flourish the best. It's not going to come from a whole bunch of suffering mindlessly, right?
You're right. Look, let me ask you a broader question. How do you define success?
Man, when I've used all of my gifts to the fullest and highest potential in service of others. I think that that's the best way that I can define success. other
Yeah.
things that come along with it. I love, you know, I want to be obviously financially taken care of and want to make sure all that happens for my family. But really, even in my affirmation, I kind of define it. My family is healthy,
Yeah.
wise, and at peace and grateful. So those
Mm-hmm.
kinds of things come under the umbrella of how I define success. You know, if you feel like you have found your passion and you are tending to your passion and sharing it with the world in a true, authentic way, I think that's when you're most successful.
Yeah, yeah. Well, being an artist, authenticity is difficult to hold on to if you're seeking the gold, but it's kind of necessary if you're trying to express yourself from your soul. Do you work to maintain authenticity, or does
Mm-hmm.
your love of the creative channel kind of support you staying true to your artistic vision? How do you line that up?
Well, authenticity is always paramount, but the creative space allows me that creative license, right? So I may tell a story in one of my songs that may not directly be mine, but it may be something that impacted me, right? So in that
Mm-hmm.
sense, it is my story. In that sense, it is true. And that allows me the creative license to paint that picture for a listener. So the authenticity is always there, even if the specific story or the specific idea is not mine. Like I've written for, you know, a bunch of different artists. I wrote for this artist named Noel Gourdin. He had this big hit called The River, and I believe he was signed to Motown. And we did this song called Spotlight Loving, and it was kind of going
Right.
back to what we were saying, the beauty of being able to love freely. My gift as a songwriter to his vision, but it was just as true for me. So I think the authenticity is always there, even if it's not specifically, you know, E's particular story on this day.
Right. Right, because as humans, we share humanity, and in sharing humanity, we share stories. And so
There
we
you
can
go.
create stories for each other that help to articulate forward sometimes better than they can write it, but they can deliver it in the way that was so intended. I love that.
100%.
You know,
Yeah.
you're well aware of who the R&B group The Temptations are. I mean,
Yeah,
you
for sure.
know that they went through a period, as so many artists do, of adapting to an ever evolving landscape. Remember when they came out with all their psychedelic sound, when the
Mm-hmm.
music scene was changing? Well,
Yeah.
you're building your career in a season where messaging is in some ways as important as a new sound. Do you think a lot or at all about keeping an edge?
Yeah. Yeah. And I have a small group of what I call my no BS posse. They'll tell me if something is sounding corny or outdated. I'm like, nah, man, that ain't it. Like you got you can do, but they don't care nothing about my feelings. Like I said, I got to leave my ego at the door. I just sent we're working on the new album, which is it's gonna be called Love for Sale. And we're working on mixing and mastering. So I just sent a couple of tracks over to my No BS posse, and I know they're gonna tell me, "Hey, man, this one's it. That one ain't it. This a little corny. You need to switch this up." So I definitely try to maintain an edge. You know, I don't try to follow trends, but I'm aware. You stay informed of what's going on because you don't want to fall out. You don't want to become outdated because then, you know, you don't, it's harder to maintain an audience. You want to be true to you, but you always want to pay attention to what's going around.
Right. It's got, in order to get it out, it has to have that deliverability. You talk
Sure.
about them saying, hey, this is good and this is BS. Uh, Barry Gordy, who, you know, I know personally, Barry
100%.
Gordy would sit there,
Mm-hmm.
would you had a nickel, would you buy this record?
Mm-hmm.
Would you buy a sandwich?
100%. Exactly. So the whole Motor City setup, the way he had that whole setup was like, I love that. And you need that. You need to have those people, the A&Rs, the people that you kind of filter things through before it gets to the world. And that's one of the things that we did with Waves and Sunsets this past, before we released. We had 2 listening parties, and I invited handfuls of close friends, musician buddies, to do kind of like a listening party and give me notes. And they did anonymous surveys. We interviewed folks, and then at the end, we did a live performance. We filmed all of it, but all of that information, all that data kind of helped informed me about what direction to take, what I needed to trim, what I needed to modify, and what worked. And so having those people and having that kind of filter system, kind of like what, you know, what they were doing at Motown, it's invaluable.
You got to have a strength and a grounding to be able to do that as the artist as well. I mean, it's one thing for a Berry Gordy or a JBH to sit in a room and have a product put to test internally before we push it to market. But when you're the artist and you've actually created it,
man,
there's a vulnerability that
100%. What Erykah Badu say, I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my stuff. So that, so.
Well, you know, the power of storytelling is beautifully evident in your music and your poetry. Share some kind of story with us, at least something in particular that would have been an experience that shaped your artistic journey.
Oh, man. I'll share something from the listening party that took place. So, like I said, we did multiple listening parties. And there was a song on the project called Skeletons. And it's just kind of speaking to, you know, we all have a past. We all have things that some things we wish we could have done differently, people that we, you know, may have stumbled across that maybe we went left when we should have went right. And there was a song called Say Something. And it just talks about the importance of communication, right? Sometimes, what was the old saying? You know, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. I know what I said to you, but for whatever reason, you hearing something different. So my wife was at my listening party. We were listening to Say Something. So was Say Something based on something that happened in real life? And all of a sudden, I got quiet and I turned my head away from the camera. And my wife got up and gave a speech. The first line in it is, "You got a lot of nerve walking in here with all that attitude." But the chorus goes, you know, "You're here, I'm here. We're not about to lose over no tears. Nothing is perfect, but if nothing is perfect, but it's worth it if we're patient. Need you to say something, baby. Just say something." So she told her story about where it came from after a tiff we had about, like, I don't even know what the argument was about because it was something small and stupid, but it just kind of, it was funny to be out there vulnerable and she's telling the story and folks are picking up on, like, that story was real. That felt real, like that came from a real space. So
yeah, kind of like if you were in the movies, you're here delivering this beautiful diatribe and she's behind you going, she's telling the something behind the something.
And she'll get on camera for sure and tell the truth, baby. She will tell it.
Oh, you know I've been with her. You know I know. She's beautiful. She's lovely. Please share my love.
Yes, indeed.
LoveLogiq, art and activism you know, they go hand in hand, right? Through the years. And you know all about artists coming together around causes for hope, feeding the world. And one really big initiative we all relate to is We Are the World, addressing apartheid. How do you see the intersection of art and activism shaping our society and driving positive change today, when so many have so much access to information, you can't know what's fact or what's fiction?
I think it's harder than ever with this generation, you know, and I think that every generation, they say, is, you know, what the generation before says, oh, this generation is going to have it the hardest, but every generation somehow finds a way to just to figure it out. And I think the same thing is going to happen with, the millennials and the whatever, what is it, what is Generation Y? Is that what's next? But I think that bringing activism into art is paramount. It has to have some weight to it. Of course, we want to entertain, we want to, just enjoy what we're doing, but there's nothing wrong with putting the medicine in the candy. And when it comes to getting information, I think you have to have a base. You have to have folks that you trust within your inner circle to kind of help guide you and steer you. And you have to be open to dialogue. I think that that's the only way you're able to really decipher between what's real and what ain't. You can't live in a silo. You can't kind of stick to your own homogenous circles. You have to be willing to have conversations with people that may see things differently, that, have bits and pieces. Maybe they have a piece of the map on their end and I have a piece of the map, and we think that this piece of the map is the whole globe, but really it ain't. So my piece of the map may match with yours, and you figure out, okay, we got a bigger piece of the puzzle, and we're able to get a better understanding that will bring that clarity, that kind of filters out the tainted information. It allows us to be more informed, it allows us to be more connected as people and as a community. And I think that those things take place in art. There's different artists that have different pieces of the map, depending on who you're listening to. And that's why I think there's a beauty in having a diverse palette for things to listen to. I go back as far as Bach and Beethoven, and as current as Kendrick Lamar and J. Cole. So I pull from all those places, and I believe that this generation, because they have access, have the opportunity to pull from those things more efficiently. What I would hope is that they are communicating with people about what they're digesting and what they're listening to, because it's the conversation along with the music that kind of helps us to stay informed and helps us to stay aware.
Yeah. Amen, brother. Amen. In the face of challenges and resistance, give a little bit of advice to some aspiring artists and activists who are looking to make a meaningful impact in their creative endeavors.
I would say start local, start with your friends, start with something that you are passionate about. Your goal should not be to save the world. It should be starting with your community. Start local. And that was something that I had to learn and, again, humble myself about. As much as we all want to have the capes, the biggest cape we wear is how we treat our neighbors. We don't realize how those small things kind of ripple out and reverberate beyond just our small communities. And I think that that's the first thing that I can encourage people to do. Start with your community. Do you know who your neighbor is? Do you know what's going on with them? Have you figured out how you can, where you all have common ground? How can you be of service to them? How can they be of service to you in small ways? And then you'll be surprised how that picks up momentum. The same thing happened with this nonprofit. I was just minding my business, at work, and these opportunities kind of presented themselves just because I maintained a certain communication with my neighbors in proximity. And they just kind of got to know me and see what I was about and said, hey, this opportunity is happening on this date. What do you think about coming down there and, doing X, Y, and Z with me? That started back in college. I was a part of a fraternity of sorts, with like-minded men, and the standard, we were a group called Majas, men acting genuinely in service. And those are still some of my brothers to this day. And we were young college kids that, like to have a good time, like to enjoy ourselves, but we were also about the community. I didn't have to go searching too far from them. I saw what they were doing. It interests me. I walked over there. I was like, what y'all doing? We're guys into? And it was real casual like that. And so I don't want people to feel like the task of serving your community or being active has to be this big daunting task. No, start with your friends, start with your homies, start with your neighbors, start with your family. Say, hey, brother, or hey, sister, or hey, auntie, this is what I'm getting into on this day. Do you think maybe you can make some, make a couple plates? I'm gonna, go down to Skid Row and just, bless some folks like that. You're being active, you're being of service, just like that. Those things, the momentum picks up once you put that kind of energy and intention out in the world. I have no doubt, and I'm a living testament to it. Just by doing those small things.
And please remember that I've asked you to reach out to Christy and make sure that I'm able to be there for August 12th, and not just be there physically, but maybe bring a client with me who's very interested in the kind of work you're doing there and would love to see the impact to the direct community. E, do you think it's ever okay to just do it for the money?
No, I don't think you're gonna get far by doing things just for the money. You'll make money, but I don't know how life is going to be sustained for you. I don't know what your quality of life is going to be like. There's plenty of folks that I know that I went to school with.
Don't families call names, because all of them been up in my house.
Listen, I don't mention names. I'm all about confidentiality. But my point is, I know plenty of folks that have talked to me on the side. This is what I'm saying. Like, I got two nickels to rub together, but my gratitude is always sustain me through those kind of things. But some of those folks that are doing things for the money, you can just see that they're not happy and they're not at peace. So no, I don't think it's ever the right to do it just for the money. It's a necessary resource.
I love you so much for that answer. Let's talk about Waves and Sunsets, okay? I want to talk about your process in creating that album. Now, from the writing to the recording and the mixing, tell us about it. And if you want to share the evolution of one song in particular, it would be interesting to hear how Born to Be came together.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So Born to Be was actually the last song
that we recorded. Right? That's a lot of questions.
It's a lot, but I'm a walk through it. I'm gonna walk through one step at a time. So Born to Be was actually the last song that we recorded. I actually recorded it while I had COVID, so I had to record it in isolation at home. And the first couple of times I did it, I said, okay, what do I want the theme to be for the album? The way an album starts is so crucial. And going back to a lot of those artists we reference, the way What's Going On started, the way Marvin Gaye started Hear My Dear, or Al Green started any of his
Curtis
albums.
Mayfield, amen.
All those Willie Hutch, those folks set a tone for how their album started, so I really wanted it to be fun. I wanted it to be palatable, and I wanted it to be just something that would be infectious. And it kind of goes back to, again, the medicine and the candy. I'm never going to just go directly at you and tell you this is what I'm trying to get across to you. Like I said, I was recovering from COVID, and my voice just wasn't quite where I needed it to be. But it actually kind of gave me, sometimes when you're a singer, you get different tones that come out when you're a little nasally. So I said, okay, let me try this and see how this sounds. Sent it over to my boy Tremaine, who ended up mixing it. And he don't like nothing that I do, okay? He has a very high standard. He's one of my primary BS posse. Like, he gonna tell you, you can do that better. That note was off. But he keeps me honest. He's like my trainer. But when he got that one back to me, he was like, okay, I like this one. I'm rocking with this one. And that let me know that I was on to something. So that one, I think I wrote in maybe 10 minutes. Um, Usually when it comes that fast, and I know I got something special, you know, I want to be that way. This is what I was born to do. And I wanted to set that intention for the beginning of the album. Like, I know why I'm doing this because I'm born to do this. This is in me. Again, I'm doing it from a place of authenticity. And I just wanted folks to feel like, hey, you're born to do whatever it is that you're doing. It's in you. You know, don't let nobody block your shine. You know, I stay shining because I'm born to be that way. My star is rising because I'm born to be that way. It's not surprising when you're born to be that way. So those were the first words that kind of came to me, and I just kind of freestyled it. And before I knew it, I had a banger, and that has been like the biggest hit on the album so far. That one reached as far as Tokyo and Europe.
It's true. It's true. And I'll tell you, like, I remember the posse that you and Brett rode in during school, and you had quite a few people in there who liked to sing and could sing, but you always had to sing. And so when I'm hearing you talk about born to be, it's like that's your testimony, and I think it's being really, it touched me. I think it's being really well received, and I just love it so much, so much.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm excited about that one.
Thank you for sharing it with all of us. Thank you for sharing it with all of us. You know, LoveLogiq mentorship and community support are crucial for activists and activists, right? Speak to the mentors and role models who've influenced you and the importance of fostering those connections. Importantly, fostering those connections.
Well, I always have to start with my mom. She's my mom, but she's still my first mentor. And she's been the most consistent mentor in my life. So she's always been a sense of a grounding space for me to bounce ideas, to, you know, make sure that my emotional and integral compass is moving in the right direction. Outside of her, I would say one of my mentors slash brothers has been a good friend of mine. His name is Marcus. He's been in the mental health field for a long time, and we stumbled across each other when I was working in the community service space doing child therapy, and he's been, you know, very integral in encouraging me to kind of step out and expand my private practice, which I'm going to be opening our office in August 1st of this year. So
that's Bryant Counseling. That's Bryant Counseling and Consulting, right? I wanted to ask you.
Yeah. So we just yesterday we just turned in our deposit. Marcus was definitely someone that I consulted, and, you know, kind of got feedback from him because I said he's been in the field for, you know, over 20 years, and serving the communities with the same kind of passion that I like to see. And so I would say that that's definitely another mentor of mine. I've had a lot of mentors in the music space, but a lot of them have kind of been distant. You know, they've been mentors that I have not been able to have direct conversations with yet, but I hope to be able to, you know.
But their light shines on your path.
Their light shines on my path, you know. So I would say Stevie Wonder is still a mentor of mine. I've gotten a chance to work with some of his family. I've gotten a chance to write a song for Stevie. He's definitely, you know, a mentor of mine. He may not remember me, but I definitely remember him. And just seeing how he's moved through this space with integrity, longevity, authenticity, and just genius, you know, as a creative. I think that he's definitely been a mentor for me, just, you know, from a distance. And man, so many that I can't even, you know, identify them. And I'll say my uncle, who's a history professor out in Mississippi. He's been a professor of African American studies for the last 30 years, and he's always been just a solid male figure for me. As I said, my mom was the primary parent growing up in our household. So anytime I had an opportunity to have a male figure that was, positive and encouraging, my mom wanted me to stay close to them. And so my uncle, Robert Jenkins, has definitely been one of those people. So I think those are a couple of the mentors.
Black man at the lectern, teaching children how to learn. I love it. I love it. I love it. You mentioned Bryant Counseling and Consulting. It's going to open on August 1. Talk a little bit about what your intention is around that. Everything you do has such intentionality to it. Talk about Bryant Counseling and Consulting.
Yes. So I've been working for, a number of different agencies for the last 15 years, lending my services, contract work, or just working directly as an employee. And, one of my business partners actually in the music world, an attorney friend of mine, was like, you have all this experience, you have all this wealth of knowledge, and I just feel like you could be doing more. I think it's time for you to kind of step out into your own space. You can do more and do it the way you want to do it. Sometimes, well, all the time, if you're working for someone else, ultimately they have the final say in what happens and how you do it. And I think at this time in my life, I've gathered enough experience, and it seems like I am ready to to expand and be that conduit for the community in my own way. Everybody eventually has to kind of step out there and take that chance. This is probably the biggest challenge that I've had thus far, because I like to just do my thing and keep it moving. But now this is something where I'm taking primary ownership in creating something from the ground up. It's beautiful, it's scary at times, but it is going to be part of my legacy. And as I get older, thinking about family, children, I want to have something to leave. And this is going to be a big part of that. I want to be able to tell my kids, hey, daddy created this beautiful artistic legacy, and he's also got this community service legacy, and he's got this area where he's able to provide therapy in a space that desperately needs it. We're primarily targeting Black and brown communities because they are rising. They're the highest rising in terms of mental health needs. We don't tend to prioritize mental health in Black and brown communities just because it just wasn't normalized for a lot of our generations. And now that we are kind of breaking out of that mindset, we're recognizing just how important mental health is. There's such a demand, there's such a need for more people that look like me, that have the experience that I have. So it's just an extension of my service, but now it's going to be in my terms, in my space, my way, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to to assisting the community. So we'll see what happens.
It's so beautiful for me as I sit here and I look at you, remembering you as a child and just savoring you as an adult. To witness the gift of your artistry nurtured by your intentionality is beautiful. It is rare, even today, regardless of where people are starting from, to see them arrive at a place where they are concurrently building an artistic world and a business world together. So many of the people you speak to whose lights have shone on your path did not have business as a platform in their lives. And so their business was handled by other people, and they
Right.
lived with only their music as a legacy. And
Right.
it created legacies of wealth and health for people other than themselves. And therefore,
Exactly.
I love to see that everything you're doing is coming from a place of wellness, of health, be it physical or mental health, and that you're expressing that through your music and sharing with us how we live in love, or through your new Bryant Consulting, counseling and consulting entity that will actually touch people who are out there listening
Sure.
and buying your music. I salute you and I thank you with so much of that happening, and just savoring that you're in the front of it and you've already achieved so much. What's the next level for LoveLogiq? What, I mean, you've heard of bucket lists. You're
Yeah.
way too early for a bucket list, but certainly you have aspirations of the next level. What can be there left?
A nap. A
Okay,
nap. A little
rest.
nap.
Okay, physical and mental wellness.
100%, 100%, a nap. But I don't know what's next for me. I think that right now everything that's on my plate is what's next. You know, growing the nonprofit.
Yes.
Corporate Contributors Group is on my plate. That's on the horizon. Bryant Counseling and Consulting is going to take, you know, like I said, we're opening August 1st, you know, but there's going to be a lot of work to really establish and, you know, kind of get the word out there. So having platforms like this is going to be great for us to kind of spread the word. So when we start advertising, you know, those that will help to kind of move this thing along. And then, you know, getting some kids, you know, like Uncle Smith told me at Brett's wedding. he told me it's about time. I'll say the PG version of what Uncle Smith told me, but he was just like, it's about
Okay. Clean it up.
it's about time. It's about time. He told me, he told Brett, and I think he told Deli. So that's probably the next immediate thing, you know, is kind of, you know, building my family legacy, you know, having a kid.
I love it, but you know what? I got to come back for Uncle Smith on that. And mine is thought clean. You don't have to clean mine up because it was gifted to me by a young lady named Haley Thomas earlier this morning. Haley spoke, and I won't quote her, but the impact she made on me was profound when she said one of the gifts she's giving herself is to learn to be respectful of her own pace. You know, she said, remember being a little girl and people saying, when I was at your age, I was playing in dirt, or I was doing this, or I was doing that. You know, they were either playing in dirt or they were building, you know, a rocket to the moon. But learning to respect her own pace is something she's giving. So before you take that nap that you deserve, I'm sure, and I want you to get, as Mama Jan, I want you to take care of yourself. Let's go 4 for 4. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we go 4 for 4?
I think that's it. You know, I'm just grateful to, you know, have the space to talk with you. I think I've touched on everything.
I love it. I love it so much, and I love you so much. I don't know if you can feel all the love just oozing up out of you.
Always.
Okay, let's go 4 for 4. I'm going to ask you 4 questions to which you'll give me 4 answers. There are no wrong or right answers, okay? And the first question is, you get to invite any 4 people to dinner you choose from any time past in history to present. Who's at your table and why?
Oh, man. Okay. Let's see. 4 people. I'm going to go Malcolm X. Malcolm X is probably one of the single most impactful figures in my life. Reading his autobiography, just watching reading about the authentic transformation that took place in his life, and to see the impact, the confidence, the wisdom, the unapologetic pride that he had for Black people, for brown people, for people, oppressed people. I'm not so stuck in my ways that I'm not willing to transition and learn something new and say, okay, I'm shifting this perspective. I'm widening my perspective. I'm widening my appreciation, my understanding of people, of race relations, of what it means to be, you know, a man, and what it means to be a human in this country, and just being fearless. So I would love to just have him at the table, and, you know,
Hey, let me
just
ask you
listen.
something. Let me ask you something, because if he's at your table, you deeply care and have studied on him. The impact he made was so profound and so and so media heavy prior to his trip to Mecca, that I think many people aren't aware of what happened after Mecca. Share that a little bit for those of our family who may only know Malcolm X the way he, and some might say, was perpetuated through media, only as his pre-Mecca journey, albeit that's not unnecessary either.
Well, you know, so he was the primary speaker for the Nation of Islam when it was growing. It was seen as, you know, very militant, very, you know, in some ways, you know, anti, you know, everyone that may not have been Black, and seeing certain people as, you know, as devils and those kinds of things. But after his trip to Mecca, it allowed him to see humans and, you know, as equal, you know, and see everyone as a brother or a sister. And coming back from Mecca, his goal was to unite all people of all backgrounds, Black, brown, yellow, white, under the, you know, the true tenets of Islam, you know, which are love and peace. And so I think that after he came back from Mecca, it kind of, I don't want to say softened him, but it just expanded him. You know, it expanded his understanding of humanity, and that you don't have to be, you know, Black to be of value. You don't, that all people of other races are not out to get you. But you can also still have a sense of pride in who you are, where you come from, and that you're still just as valuable as everybody else. And so I think right before his untimely passing, I know he was getting ready to bring some civil suits to the United Nations, I think, or because of some of the injustices that were taking place with people of color and poor people. So I think that he started to see a lot of what was happening with Martin before Martin passed. And I think Martin started seeing a lot of what Malcolm was saying, and they were able to see that they were a lot more alike than they were different. They both had the same kind of intention.
Dance.
Yes,
there was a quiet dance they did.
And they were both necessary.
Martin spoke to the fierce urgency of now, and Malcolm acted to the fierce urgency of now. But I do think that they ended up in a very same place of brotherhood, unity, love, sisterhood, and humanity.
Yes. And what I appreciate the most about, you know, that is he lived unapologetically in each space. And it's not always easy to do that. We tend to feel like we have to hide our imperfections. We have to hide our mistakes. And he did not shy away from that, at least in, you know, reading in his autobiography. He gave you everything. He gave you the raw, he gave you his transgressions, you know, and all the way up to where he, you know, when he passed. And I think that that's the true measure of a human. You know, we're not here to be perfect. We're here to go through different challenges, to learn from them and let these challenges and lessons be a blessing to the larger community. And I think that that's what I appreciate the most about him, that confidence to say this.
And shout out to Denzel. Shout out to Denzel for an immaculate portrayal.
Immaculate. He did that. So I would say Malcolm X, John Henrik Clarke will be the next person that I would have at the dinner table. Just one of our premier historians, and when it comes to history, when it comes to African American history and history before African Americans got to this country. He's just been a wealth of knowledge. He, from John Henrik Clarke, sprouts the Cornel West, sprouts the Michael Eric Dyson, sprouts all of the great thinkers and sociologists.
Are you familiar with Henry Louis Gates?
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
For
yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
For
yeah.
sure.
Good word. Yeah.
Yes.
All of that. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I would say Malcolm X, John Henrik Clarke, James Baldwin. He's just a fabulous orator. Another person that was just very thought-provoking and ahead of his time as a writer. I loved watching his dialogue with I want to say it was with a young Angela. I think it was Angela Davis. Watching his dialogue with her on YouTube. And I would love to have him there just to be a fly on the wall. And then I would say David Chappelle, another brilliant mind, but just a comedic genius.
So you haven't canceled David Chappelle?
Another fearless figure. No,
you haven't
I don't know. I've not canceled. No, I don't think that. I don't believe that canceling serves anybody. If you want someone to be transformed, you have to have a conversation with them and understand what their intentions are. If we canceled each other, again, going back to Malcolm X, if Malcolm X was canceled when he was Detroit Red, we would never have gotten to El Hajj Malik Shabazz. So when we cancel people too soon, we cancel their potential for growth and change. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Preach. Oh, wow. Wow. Okay, let's go 2 for 4. You got me on 1 for 4, but let's go 2 for 4. Okay. So other than LoveLogiq, what 4 musicians are you listening to right now and why?
I'm listening.
That's a tough question for you.
Yeah, it's tough to, reduce it. I'm listening to Kendrick Lamar. That's my I would say that's like my unspoken competition, because I feel like with intention, with his art, aspire to be. His most recent album, again, it kind of reminds me of Marvin Gaye's Hear My Dear, where he just kind of peeled back the layers of himself, talking about his own mental health journey, talking about his own traumas. He kind of explores, what it looks like to be in an unhealthy relationship, and how we can, kind of unintentionally hurt one another, and what we can do to heal from that. He talks about family trauma and what it looks like to come from from my family of abuse, and how to resolve those generational curses. I was actually listening to the album when I was there for Brett's wedding, so it has a very, very special place in my heart, because it actually dropped the same day that Brett got married, which is also my wedding anniversary. So all of that kind of makes it's very special. So Kendrick Lamar, there's a gentleman named Kenyon Dixon, amazing vocalist and songwriter, extremely soulful. You would like him a lot. I would encourage you to listen to his recent album called The Closer. For you, Mama Jan, listen to it, and I want you to tell me how you enjoy it. I know you will. He's like a modern day Marvin Gaye, and I have the utmost respect for him. And he's definitely like the person that I'm chasing you know, we all have like our healthy competition, but he's definitely the one that I'm looking to see, okay, I see where you're going, and I'm gonna pull a little bit from you, that inspiration from you to kind of, you know, further my path. But Kenyon Dixon
High
is definitely
praise
someone I'm
indeed.
listening to.
That's
Yeah,
high
yeah,
praise
yeah.
indeed. Wow.
For sure. It's well deserved. And on the hip hop, going back to the hip hop side of things, Killer Michael Render, he's from Atlanta, Georgia. He kind of encapsulates how I would like to be seen in the totality of myself as a human. He is a social activist, very brilliant, Morehouse graduate. Um, he is, you know, speaking on a lot of panels about trying to help Black and brown folks and poor folks. And he also just released his album called Michael, and it's amazing. It's a gospel. It's like gospel infused with hip hop lyrics, but it's beautiful from beginning to ending. And I love his album, his relationship and his understanding. I love that album. So that's something else I've been listening to. I would say Killer Mike. And then I would say lastly, this artist named Rory. He's kind of like, how would I say? He's kind of like a Quincy Jones in terms of pulling artists together. He doesn't specifically sing or rap, but he pulls together all of my favorite artists to put together collaboration projects. He would be kind of like putting together We Are the World. He pulls in the Michael Jacksons, the Lionel Richies, all those folks to put together like a great compilation R&B album. It feels modern, and it doesn't feel like it's following the trend of anybody else, but it's fresh. And so I've been pulling a lot from that album. So those are the four folks. So Kendrick Lamar, Kenyon Dixon, Killer Mike, and Rory. And his album is called I Thought It'd Be Different.
All right. So listen, I love the way you give homage to them, and definitely add into my playlist. And since he didn't make it to dinner, maybe J. Cole and I can take you for tea. Okay.
Hey, I'm down. I'm down. Tell J. Cole I'm ready, man. He be my fifth. He'd be my fifth.
Well, you already loved him up earlier, so he knows it. He knows he's in the house. But sure. I'll share that. Books. What four books do you recommend to our family to read, and why?
Oh man, I would say it's easy to say Autobiography of Malcolm X. I think everybody should read that. It's just a transformative human story.
Not just about him, but it'll push us into learning about us too.
100%. 100%. I learned more about myself reading that book than anything. I would say The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah.
That book has been very transformative for myself spiritually and mentally, just kind of healing from unhealthy ways of thinking, unhealthy habits, and just kind of helping to maximize my potential as a spiritual being, having a human experience. So Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, for sure. Humble the Poet. He's a rapper. I believe he's from India, and he wrote this very just simple, palatable book on ways to again transform your mind, break habits, and transform yourself. So I think that book, Unlearn, is really, really powerful. And then I'll say Green Lights, Matthew McConaughey. It's kind of an unofficial autobiography of his adventures and of how he stumbled into, you know, this world of superstardom, maintaining who he is, you know, maintaining that Southern charm, but at the same time, being fearless in whatever he's pursuing. He was kind of like a world traveler before he's, you know, got into acting. I think he was a philosophy. He's like a philosophy guy. So I'm big into those kind of books. So I would say those four: Autobiography of Malcolm X, Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle, Unlearn by Humble the Poet, and Green Lights, Matthew McConaughey.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. The two I don't have will be added. Thank you to my library. Nice. Okay, nice. Let's go 4 for 4, LoveLogiq. What 4 pieces of advice do you offer to our family now? And if the advice was gifted to you from someone else, please pay homage to the author.
Yeah. Sorry, my little puppy is getting excited. He's ready for me to be done.
Oh, bring your baby up. Introduce us to your baby. Hello.
It's actually my wife's dog. Hello. This is Teddy. Say hi, Mama Jan. Say hi, Mama Jan.
Hey,
we're gonna be wrapping
right
up soon, Teddy.
For the advice.
Right on time for advice. I'll go back to, you know, my personal saying. Remember, get quiet, get patient, be able to overcome whatever the challenge is in that moment. Find a quiet space. Allow yourself to be patient with whatever's taking place. Don't feel like you have to rush, and find something to be grateful for, even in the eye of the storm, because there's always something to be grateful for. Don't be afraid to say I was wrong. I think that I am learning that more and more as I get older. You know, sometimes our egos, you know, and our arrogance and our need to be in the right or not look bad or look stupid or look whatever. And so I got that one wrong, and it's okay. And that allows you, that opens you up to be corrected, and that allows you to grow. So I would say that would be the second piece of advice. I would say, don't be afraid to say I love you. Don't be afraid to say I love you. These are simple things.
To others and to yourself. To others and to yourself, yeah?
To others and to yourself. To others and to yourself. Because we think that people know how we feel, but you never know when that I love you can be the difference between someone wanting to make it through the day and someone not wanting to make it through their day. You know, I work amongst, like I said, amongst the number of things that I do, I work for a suicide crisis line. And just hearing a lot of the stories about people that just feel so alone, you know, and just reminding them of their value is so important. And sometimes you can do that simply by just telling your family or your friends, send them a text. You know, if you don't want to get on the phone, just say, hey, I love you. I was thinking about you. And I try to be intentional about that, you know, with my buddies. You know, sometimes the guys, you know, don't always want to say I love you back, but you know, sometimes they want to be a little macho, but bump that, man. We all need love. So I tell them, you know, I tell people, hey, man, I love you, bro. And you can see a shift happen just by saying those words. And lastly, protect your mental and physical space. Be discerning about what you allow into your ear, into your heart, and into your physical space. Because you never know where a distraction or, you know, a poisonous word or you know, a destructive energy may present itself. So having that discernment, protecting your space, being wise about who you allow around you is so important. I think in every facet of life, in business, in service, in relationships. And I've been fortunate enough to have such great people around me, from friends, lifelong friends, you know, to, you know, the relationships that I've cultivated in the music world. So I would say that probably my last bit of advice. Oh, and lastly, no, I said that already. Don't be afraid to say, you know, be thankful. But I said that earlier. There's always something to be grateful for. Even a three-legged dog still got three good legs to lose. So I'll leave it there.
Wow. Wow. Oh my goodness. LoveLogiq on my baby E. Thank you so much. As I look at your wall, I see you're here. I'm pleased. I really dig your company. Thank you.
Shout out to my wife. That's her.
So much. Yeah, from my heart to your home. Blessings.
Thank you, Mama Jan. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and I look forward to seeing you on the 12th and in future endeavors. I love you.